The desert sun burned high above the alien market. Sand blew across rows of cages. Each cage held someone broken, someone who had been sold before. In the far corner, one small cage held a green-skinned alien girl. Chains wrapped around her wrists and ankles, her long black hair hung in her face. Her ears, sharp and pointed, twitched at every sound. She didn't look up. She had stopped looking up a long time ago. The auctioneer yelled, "Next." Young female, still strong, minimal damage. The girl's heart pounded. Her turn had come. She didn't resist when they pulled her from the cage. What was the point? Resistance only brought more pain. Her legs dragged in the sand as she was. Pulled to the center stage, the crowd laughed. She looks half dead already. Perfect for a fighter pit or ... private use. Maybe just throw her to the beasts. The girl kept her face blank. She had heard it all before. She knew what came next. Chains, darkness, hunger, pain. She waited for the highest bidder. Then, a voice spoke, quiet, firm. 500 credits. The crowd turned to look. It wasn't one of the usual buyers. It was a human man, older, in plain clothes. Not a rich man, not a cruel one. Just a man. Someone laughed. "You buying a toy, old man? He'll break her in a day, or maybe she'll break him." The auctioneer shrugged. Sold. The girl didn't react. A new cage, a new master. The human walked toward her slowly. He looked tired, worn. His face didn't show desire or hate. Just ... quiet. He didn't touch her. Instead, he unlocked the chain from the auction platform and motioned toward his vehicle. "Come," he said softly. "Let's go." She hesitated. No whip, no push. She followed, confused. They drove 4 hours through the desert. Silence filled the air. The girl watched him closely. He didn't speak, didn't glance at her, didn't tie her down. He offered her water. She didn't drink it. Maybe it was drugged. She kept her guard up. He didn't force her. They stopped. Near a small outpost, his home, it seemed. It wasn't a mansion or a slave pen. It was just a simple metal structure with tools, wires, and dusty windows. Inside, the human showed her a room. It had a bed, clean sheets, a chair, a blanket. "You can sleep here," he said. "No one will hurt you here." She stared at him, unblinking. He walked away. That night, she sat on the floor instead of the bed. She didn't sleep. She waited for the door to slam open, for hands to grab her, for the pain to begin, but nothing came. Only silence in the morning. The human left food on a small tray near her door. He didn't enter. He didn't demand she touch the bread. Warm, soft. She waited for a trick. Then she ate slowly, carefully. Her body ached with hunger. Hours passed. The human worked on machines outside. She watched through a crack in the wall. He fixed engines, spoke to no one. Sometimes he smiled to himself while humming. No chains. No orders. No punishment. Days passed. She waited for his real face to show, for the cruelty beneath the calm, but it never came. One evening, she dropped a cup by mistake, shattered on the floor. Her hands shook. She braced for the blow. The man walked in, looked at the broken cup, and said, "It's just a cup." He handed her a cloth and helped her clean. Then he left again. She stared after him. Her chest felt tight. She didn't understand. Why had he bought her? Was this a game? A slow trap? Or ... Was this human different? She didn't believe in kindness. Not anymore. But something in her heart, something cold and locked, moved a little. She didn't want to believe it, but part of her ... hoped. The sun rose slowly above the desert. outpost. The alien girl sat on the floor of the small room, her knees pulled to her chest. Her eyes stared at the door. It had not been locked all night. Still, she hadn't dared to leave. She listened carefully. The human was up again. He moved outside, working on something metallic. She heard the soft clinks of tools. There were no angry footsteps, no shouting, no chains. It didn't make sense. He had bought her. Why wasn't she chained? Why wasn't she punished? Why hadn't he hurt her yet? That day, she stepped outside the room slowly. Her legs were weak, but her mind was sharp. She stayed close, too. The wall, watching. The human stood near a broken hoverbike, wiping grease from his fingers. He noticed her, but didn't speak. Instead, he picked up a water can and gently placed it on a nearby table. Then he went back to work. She watched him. After some time, she dared to speak. Her voice was dry. "Why did you buy me?" The human paused. He looked at her, not like an owner, not like a monster, just ... like a person looking at another person. "I didn't like how they were laughing at you," he said. "That's all." She narrowed her eyes. "You expect me to believe that?" He shrugged. "You don't have to." He walked away. Later, she found a plate of food left for her again. Hot soup, real vegetables, soft bread. She picked it up and stared at it. Was this a trick? Back in the camps, food often had drugs. Eat, sleep, wake up with bruises. But here, the food was clean. Every day she ate. That evening, she walked outside again. The wind was cool. The sand had settled. She saw him feeding a small animal near the back of the house. It was a desert lizard, wounded and missing a leg. He gave it water and a small piece of meat. "You feed animals too?" she asked quietly. The human nodded. "Things that are hurt deserve care." His words confused her. No one had said anything like that before. She sat on a rock, watching the sunset. The next morning, she tried something bold. She wandered into his workshop. He didn't stop her. He showed her how to hold a tool. Let her touch a machine. It was the first time anyone had let her do something without force. She didn't smile. But something inside her stirred. "Why are you doing this?" she asked again. He wiped sweat from his forehead. "Because you've suffered enough." She looked away. She wanted to believe him. But trust was dangerous. That night, she didn't sleep on the floor. She curled up on the edge of the bed. Just a little. The blanket felt soft. She held a spoon in her hand, sharp and ready just in. The next day, while the human worked outside, she opened one of his drawers. Inside were wires, tools, and a small metal knife. She took it. Her hand trembled. If he tried anything at all, she would fight back. Later that evening, as he worked with his back turned, she approached, slowly, silently. She raised the knife. Her breath caught. Then his voice. "If you're going to do it fast." She froze. He turned and looked at her, not afraid, not angry. Just ... tired. "I won't stop you," he said. "If hurting me makes you feel safer ... then do it." The knife fell from her hand. She stepped back, shocked. He picked it up, handed it back. "No chains here," he whispered. "No masters. No slaves. Just broken people." She stared at him, speechless. Later that night, she cried. Not from fear, but because her heart didn't know how to handle kindness. She didn't understand this man. But maybe, just maybe, ... he wasn't like the others. The night was quiet, but her heart was loud. She stared at the ceiling, her sharp ears picking up every sound. The spoon she had sharpened lay near her fingers again, just in case. She had tried to stab him yesterday. He had caught her. He gave the knife back. And he still didn't punish her. It confused her. No one had ever done that. Not the traders, not the guards, not the previous owners. They all punished. They all hurt. This human didn't. Was he broken? Or worse, was this some kind of twisted game? She needed answers. In the morning, she stepped outside her room. The human was fixing wires in a half-broken wall panel. His face had a new cut on it from yesterday's. Failed attack? She looked at it. He didn't. He acted like nothing had happened. "You're bleeding," she said. "Yeah," he replied softly. "You caught me. It's okay." She blinked. "You're not ... angry?" He shook his head. "No." She felt something tighten in her chest. He handed her a cloth. "Help me wipe the dust off these tools." She took the cloth. Her hands shook at first, but he said nothing. He worked beside her silently. It felt strange. Not as a slave, not as an object, but like she was being treated like a person. Later, that day, she found herself sitting outside his workshop. The wind blew softly. The desert was calm. The human returned with a small box. Inside were soft bandages, antiseptic, and a simple bottle of healing cream. "For your wrist," he said. "I saw the old bruises." She hesitated. He didn't force her. He just left the box next to her and walked away. She looked down at her wrist scarred, burned and bruised from months of chains. She touched the cream gently. It was cool, soothing. She applied a small amount, and for the first time in many moons, her wounds stopped hurting. The next few days passed quietly. She helped him clean, handed him tools, cooked a meal once, not because he told her to, but because she wanted to try. Still, she didn't smile. Her heart wouldn't let her yet, but her eyes watched him closely. Every movement, every word. Still no threats, no harsh orders, no strange punishments. He treated her like she mattered. One afternoon, a loud noise came from the back of the compound. A pipe had burst. The human rushed to fix it. Without thinking, she followed him and helped hold the line while he sealed it. They worked together, side by side. Dust on their faces, grease on their hands. When they were done, he looked at her and simply said, "Thanks." No reward, no chain, no collar. Just thanks. She didn't reply, but that night she didn't hold the spoon. She slept on the bed, properly in. The morning, she saw a small bundle placed outside her door. Inside were clothes-knot rags, but real, soft fabric. Simple, but clean. Her eyes widened. No one had ever given her clothes before. Without shouting or mocking, she put them on and walked into the common area. The human looked up, smiled slightly, and said, "Looks like they fit." She felt heat rise. In her cheeks, not anger. Something else, confusion, gratitude. Later that evening, the human sat by a fire outside. She sat nearby, hugging her knees. He spoke first. "What's your name?" She looked at him sharply. No one had ever asked that. They all called her things. It, girl, pet, beast. She stayed quiet. He nodded, understanding. "That's okay. You can tell me when you're ready." The fire cracked gently between them. "You can stay as long as you want," he added. "Or leave. I won't stop you." Her breath caught in her throat. "You would let me go?" "Yes." No tracking device. No cage, no lie in his voice. Just truth. She didn't answer, but that night she sat closer to the fire, and her eyes, for the first time, had a small light in them. The next day, she did something she never thought she would. She picked up a tool, walked into the workshop, and asked, "Can I help today?" The human smiled, and the healing began. The morning sun painted the sky in orange and gold. The alien girl stepped out of her room wearing the clothes the human had given her. They were still new, soft, and smelled like the soap she had never used before. Her feet touched the warm floor as she walked to the kitchen area. She wasn't scared today. Not like before. The human stood by the stove, cooking something in a pot. When he saw her, he gave a small nod. Hungry. She nodded. He made space at the table. She sat. There was no collar, no chain on her foot, no electric shock to keep her still, just warm food, and silence that didn't hurt. They ate quietly. She watched him from the corner of her eyes. He was always gentle in his movements. He didn't slam things. He didn't shout. She thought of the men who had owned her before. How they shouted and kicked. How they dragged her around like a broken toy. But this human, he never touched her without reason. He never even looked at her the way others had. She didn't understand it. After breakfast, he stood up and said, "I want to show you something." She followed him to his workbench. There, sitting on the table, was her old slave collar. Her heart skipped. He picked it up, studied it, then slowly snapped it in two using a small cutter. The device sparked and died. She froze. He turned to her and said, "You're free. You don't belong to anyone now." She didn't know how to react. Her hands slowly went to her neck. Feeling the place where the metal used to sit, she had worn that collar for years. It had been a part of her, a symbol of pain, of ownership, of silence. Now, it was gone. Why? She asked. Because no one should wear one, he replied. That night, she sat in front of the fire again. That this time, she sat next to him, not apart, not afraid. She didn't say much, but her presence said everything. The next day, she tried smiling for the first time. It was small, barely there. But the human noticed. He didn't say anything. He just smiled back. And somehow, it meant more than 1,000 words. She began to talk more, slowly, one sentence at a time. He never asked too much, never pushed. He would ask simple things like, "Did you sleep well? Or would you like to help with this?" Sometimes she said yes. Sometimes she said nothing but the fear. In her chest, it was fading. One evening, while cleaning a storage shelf, she found a mirror. She stared at her reflection. Her skin looked healthier. Her eyes were not red from crying. Her lips were not cracked. Her arms had gained strength. She was not the same. Broken creature who was sold like garbage. She was still healing, but now she looked like someone worth saving. Later, the human handed her a small necklace with a stone tied at the end. "It's not a collar," he said quickly. "It's just something pretty." She held it, unsure. "It's yours if you want," he added. She touched the stone. It was smooth, cool, beautiful. She nodded once and placed it around her neck. It didn't feel like ownership. It felt like choice. That night, she dreamed of running across an open field with no chains. She laughed in the dream. No one chased her. No one called her thing. The air was clean. The sun warm. She woke up with tears in her eyes. But this time, they weren't from pain. They were from hope. In the morning, she stood in the doorway as the human packed tools. "I'm going with you today," she said quietly. He looked surprised. "You sure?" She nodded. "I want to help." He smiled and handed her gloves. Together, they walked to the broken pipe system far from the outpost. And, for the first time in her life, she didn't feel like a slave. She felt like a person. The desert air was calm that evening. The alien girl sat alone beside the workshop, her hands resting on her knees. The sky above turned purple as the sun dipped low. It had been a peaceful day. She had helped fix a water pipe. She had cleaned the kitchen. The human had even complimented her work. But something inside her felt heavy. The wind blew gently through her hair. She looked at the sky, but didn't really see it. Her chest felt tight, breathing shallow. Then, out of nowhere, Her eyes filled with tears. She didn't understand why. She stood up and walked slowly toward the back of the outpost. There was a small bench near a pile of scrap metal. She sat down and lowered her head. Tears fell silently at first. She tried to stop them. She had cried before, but always in secret, always while chained, always in fear. Now she was free. So, why did it hurt so much? The memories came back, fast faces of past owners, chains, beatings, empty rooms, loud voices. Cruel laughter. She remembered the cold nights on stone floors. She remembered begging for food. She remembered thinking she would die in a cage, and now? Now she was safe, but her heart didn't know what to do with this safety. She didn't hear the human approaching. He didn't speak. He just stood near her quietly. When she looked up, her cheeks wet, her lips trembling, he didn't ask anything. He sat beside her for a long moment. They said nothing. Then, softly, she whispered, "Why are you so kind to me?" The human didn't answer right away. He looked at the ground, his hands resting calmly. "Because someone was kind to me once," he said. "When I didn't deserve it." She stared at him. "You were a slave." "No," he said, "but I was lost. And someone helped me, so now I help." She covered her face with her hands and cried harder. But this time, the tears felt different. Not just pain. Not just fear. It was release. Years of locked-up feelings poured out. The human gently reached out slowly, without force, and placed his hand on her back. Warm, steady. He didn't hug her tightly or try to stop her tears. He just sat there, letting her know she wasn't alone. And for the first time in her life, someone held her, not to hurt her, not to use her, but to comfort her. "I don't even know who I am anymore," she said between sobs. "You're not a slave," he replied. She looked at him. "You're free now. You're someone who survived." Her lips trembled. "But I'm broken." "Maybe," he said. "But broken things can be fixed. You already are." That night, she didn't sleep on the edge of the bed. She curled under the blanket. Safe and warm. She clutched the small necklace he had given her days ago. Not a collar, not a chain. It's just a gift. And she whispered a word she hadn't said in years. "Thank you." The next morning, she woke up early. The sun had just begun to rise. She made tea, the way the human liked it, warm, simple. With a little sweet, she placed the cup beside him as he repaired a dusty control panel. He looked at her, surprised. "You didn't have to." "I know," she replied. She sat beside him, together. They worked in silence, comfortable silence. She was learning to fix things. Tools no longer scared her. She asked questions. He answered patiently. Every day, her hands grew stronger. Every day. Her heart felt lighter. One afternoon, she found a mirror again. She stood in front of it. Her face looked different, now brighter, fuller, stronger. Her eyes still carried old pain, but also something new. Life. She touched her reflection and whispered, "I'm still here." That night, sitting by the fire, she asked, "Do you think I'll ever feel normal?" The human looked at her. "You already are. Just a different kind of normal." She smiled. This time, it wasn't small. It was real. Days turned into weeks. The alien girl was no longer just a shadow in the background of the outpost. She walked freely now, without fear in her steps. Her eyes no longer darted around for danger. Her back was straight. Her hands no longer trembled when someone came close. She helped repair the broken machines, carried tools, and even cleaned the old solar panels on the roof. The human never asked for these things. She simply wanted to help, and that surprised her more than anything. One morning, she stood outside, watching the sun rise above the desert hills. The soft wind brushed against her face, and for the first time in years, she felt peace in her chest. The human walked up beside her with 2 cups of tea. "Still love the view?" he asked. She nodded, taking the warm cup from his hand. "I never noticed the sky before. I was always locked up." He stayed quiet. She looked at him and asked, "Why do you live out here? Alone?" He sipped his tea and said, "Because the galaxy is loud. Too much hate, too much noise. I came here to fix things in peace." She tilted her head. "You came to fix machines, and ended up fixing me." The man smiled, not proudly, but quietly. "You fixed yourself," he said. Later that day, he brought out an old hovercraft that needed heavy repairs. "Big job," he said. "Might take weeks." "I want to work on it with you," she said. Instantly, he raised an eyebrow. "You sure?" "Yes," she nodded. "I want to stay, if that's okay." The words surprised even her. But she meant them. She wanted to stay. Not because she had Kyo, not because she was scared of the outside, but because this place had become something she never thought she'd find again. A home. They worked for hours under the sun, she learned. How to connect fuel lines, clean filters, and test engines. When she messed up, he never shouted. He just showed her again, step by step. Every mistake was met with patience. Every success was met with a quiet smile. She had never felt this kind of respect before, and she never wanted it to end. That night, as they sat around the small fire, she stared at the stars. "I used to dream about escaping," she whispered. "Running far away, maybe even disappearing." He looked at her, and now? She glanced at him. "Now, I dream about building things. I dream about helping someone." She paused. "I dream about staying." He didn't reply for a long time. Then, softly, he said, "You don't owe me anything, you know. If you ever want to go, I won't stop you." She turned to him. "But I don't want to go." He looked into her eyes and saw no fear. No confusion, just truth. She wasn't staying out of fear. She was staying out of choice. The next day, while organizing parts, she found an old photo hidden under a toolbox. It showed the human when he was younger, standing with a woman and a small child. All 3 were smiling. She stared at it for a while. Later, when he returned, she asked, "Is this your family?" He nodded slowly. "Yes, long time ago." She didn't ask what happened. She didn't need to. The sadness in his eyes said enough. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Thank you," he replied quietly. That evening, she cooked dinner for both of them. Nothing fancy, just something warm and filling. He was surprised, but didn't say much. He only smiled and ate everything. "You're getting good at this," he said. "I learned fast," she replied. Proud. They laughed, soft, shared sound that danced through the quiet outpost. Before sleeping, she stood by the door to her room. She turned to him and said, "Thank you for giving me my life back." He shook his head. "I didn't give it to you. You took it back." She nodded. Then stepped inside, feeling something she hadn't felt in years. Belonging. A storm rolled across the distant desert, but the outpost was calm. Inside the workshop, the alien girl tightened a bolt on the old hovercraft engine. Her hands moved fast, steady, confident. She had changed. Her skin had color now. Her body had strength. Her eyes, once full of fear, now held fire. The human stepped into the workshop, wiping his hands. He looked at the engine and gave a small smile. "That should work. You did a good job." She didn't smile back. Instead, she asked quietly, "Are you going somewhere?" He looked surprised. "No. Why?" "You're fixing the hovercraft," she said. He shrugged. "Just in case we need it." She nodded, still unsure. The truth was, she didn't want him to leave. Later that day, a message came through the old communication terminal. It was weak, crackling, but clear enough. Slaver patrols sighted. East sector. Be cautious. She froze. Her body remembered. Chains. Collars. Screaming, she turned toward him. Are they coming here? I don't know, he said honestly. She clenched her fists. They find me, they'll take me back. He walked up to her and placed a hand on her shoulder. They won't take you, he said firmly. Not while I'm breathing. Her chest tightened. You would fight them. He nodded. I didn't buy you to watch you be taken again. You're not property. You're you. That night, she couldn't sleep. She walked outside and sat. Near the fire pit, the human joined her. Sitting across the flames, I never belonged anywhere, she said softly. You do now, he replied. She looked at him. Why do you care so much? He stared into the fire. Because for a long time, I had no one. And then you came. He smiled gently. Now I do. The next day, she packed a small bag. Not to run, but just in case they needed to escape. But he had a different idea. We can stand our ground, he said. She was scared. But for the first time, she didn't want to run. She didn't want to be a shadow again. She wanted to live. And then it happened. A slaver scout ship landed nearby. Dust filled the air. She watched from the roof as 3 armed aliens stepped out. Her heart pounded. One of them shouted, "We're looking for a runaway, female, green skin, young." The human stepped forward alone, calm, brave. No one like that here. He said that the aliens pushed past him, but she didn't hide. She stepped into view. I'm not your property anymore, she said loudly. The slavers laughed. You think that matters? The human stood between her and them. She belongs to no one, and you're not taking her. The lead slaver pulled out a weapon, but she was faster. She grabbed a wrench from the wall and threw it straight into the weapon, knocking it aside. In the confusion, the human tackled one slaver. She hit another with a shock tool. Together, they fought not as owner and slave but as a team. In the end, the slavers fled, bleeding and broken. They didn't expect a girl and a middle-aged man to fight like lions. They didn't understand what it meant to fight for freedom. When it was over, she sat beside him on the dusty ground, breathing hard. He looked at her and smiled. You're not afraid anymore. She smiled back. Not with you around. That night, they fixed the fire pit again. The flames danced between them. She turned to him. You saved me. He shook his head. You saved yourself. She reached out and held his hand gently. I want to stay, she said. Because I have nowhere to go, but because this is my home. He looked at her. Then stay. Not as a servant, not as a guest. He paused. As family? Her eyes filled with tears, but this time, they didn't hurt. They healed from that day forward. She wasn't his slave. She wasn't his project. She was his family. Together, they rebuilt more than machines. They rebuilt each other, one broken part at a time.